Hello class. This is content 1 for our unit 1,000 Wishes, where we learn about origami, conception, and Japan. So basic information. The content for this unit is the stage of human development, that is conception. The context, the who we are talking about are the samurai. The what we're talking about and focusing on studio-wise is origami. The where we are in the world is Japan. The when we are, our time period we're studying and really focusing on, is the Edo period of Japan, which was about 1660 to 1860. The reason why is sacrifice for a wish, and we're going to speak more about that tomorrow. And the process is folded paper. So our content is human development for the class and how that relates to crafts, because a lot of crafts are hooked into specific human developmental stages. And since we're all humans, I hope, it's a good thing to learn about. So we're starting off with conception, and we're also going to look at population laws and traditions in Asia, the connection to origami, and Sadako. We're going to focus on conception today, population law and tradition tomorrow, with the beginning of the connection to origami, and then Sadako and relevance in the next rotation. And here we have an adorable origami baby. So essential questions that we're looking at today is, what is conception? What's the age range that it deals with? What are some of the physical characteristics, the psychological characteristics, and social characteristics? And how does this tie into world population and origami? So conception happens when a sperm implants into an egg, causing fertilization. And that is what you see at these two slides. This one, this kind of sphere with all the little things, that's an egg surrounded by sperm. There's like millions of sperm, well, hundreds, trying to make it into the egg, but there aren't very many lucky ones. This is a detail where you see the sperm implanting into the egg. And when successful fertilization occurs, there's a brief flash of light. You can't see it. It's not like you light up or anything. It happens inside. And this was just recently discovered within the last year. And they aren't quite sure exactly what causes it, though they think it's a zinc-based reaction. And here in this image, you can see that flash of light. You can see that red bump on the side is the sperm implanting, and it's successful. So bang, everything glows. Fireworks. So the basic ways and means of conception, there is the basic one, the natural one where we've come from, which is meiosis. That's where you have random segregation or grouping of genes from each parent in cell division. That's why we inherit characteristics from both of our parents. But there are a few other ways. There is parthenogenesis, which is when genes from a female create a new offspring. And it's not a clone, and there's no men involved. It happens naturally within some species. Some are more common than others. Frogs do this and fish do this, and depending upon what's going on with their population and the ratio of males to females, it can be quite common, because if there's not enough males to ensure the species is continuing, the females will just start producing. It's also been done with a mammal in a laboratory, and that is Kagaya, the mouse, which is up here, this little black mouse. And the female mouse was, how they made this happen was they just shot the egg with electricity, and that stimulated it to divide. That's kind of similar to how a clone is made, but not quite. And then there's also cloning. And this has come a super long way since we figured out how to do it way back when in the late 60s. It's the duplication of genes in a new individual. So you have one creature and you get an exact duplicate of that creature. And you do that by extracting the DNA and implanting that into an egg. So the host, the mother, doesn't have to even be related. In some cases, it doesn't have to be the same species. That's how they're getting back animals that are extinct or near to extinct. Is they, like the gaur, which is a type of prehistoric type cow, they cloned it and then implanted that into an ox, and it worked. And the baby gaur was born, but it did not live very long. But cloning happens. Dolly the sheep was the first higher mammal to be cloned. They can clone everything now. Full cloning of humans is illegal. Humans are only allowed to go to an 8-stage cell division as a clone. But we don't know where this is going to happen in the future. At the bottom there, you see a set of cloned cows. Cloning is important in agriculture because you can use, like, in the factory farms where they raise hogs for medical reasons, to make insulin and things of that nature. You can control exactly what kind of hog you're getting and making sure that it's suitable for that product. In industries such as professional horse racing, horses have to be tested to make sure that they are not clones. There are natural variables. You don't always get just one baby. If you have one egg and one sperm, you get one embryo. And if that divides in half, you get identical twins. If it keeps dividing, you can get triplets or quadruplets, etc. And then at the same time, you can have multiple eggs get impregnated by multiple sperms. So 2 eggs and 2 sperms. You have 2 babies or fraternal twins. These are twins that can be different sexes. They can look similar. They can look different. And twins run in families. As my personal example, the top picture, and these pictures are kind of older. These kids are around 13 or so now. You have Morgan and Jake. They are fraternal twins. These are my great niece and nephew. So obviously they have different genders and they resemble each other, but Morgan is larger and was larger all throughout childhood until this past year when Jake out of nowhere grew a lot. We're talking like 6 inches. And yes. And then below are Harry and Norman. They are my great nephews and they are identical twins. And it's really hard to tell them apart. So the age range, the general time it takes from conception to birth in humans is 9 months. So we count that as -9 to 0. 0 being the day that you come out into the world. This can vary by individual. Some people are born early, and that's called premature. Some people are born late, though medicine doesn't usually allow mothers to go too late. I was born 5 days late. I was supposed to be born on Christmas, but I was late. My son was born almost 10 days late. Yeah, that wasn't fun. But you can see how a woman changes during her pregnancy from 4 months where she first starts kind of showing all the way through to 9 months. Some women, you can't tell that they're pregnant. They don't show very much. And a lot of that has to do with like the muscle wall and the abdomen and their body weight. It also though some women can look extremely pregnant when they are only like 5 months along. And again, that has to do with your size of your body and how it's not so much how thin you are, but how small your frame is, how delicate you are. So physical characteristics during this stage, there's huge rapid growth and development. It's the fastest we grow as humans. It starts with fertilization, and then you are a zygote. You start dividing until you get to about 8 or so. So it takes about, you're a zygote for around 2 weeks until you have divided enough to start becoming specialized. And then you are an embryo, and that lasts to the end of the first 8 weeks. And then you're a fetus, and you're a fetus until you're born, and then you are a baby or an infant. During this whole time, everything depends upon the health of the mother. When you look over here to the right, you see an embryo. It is a very, very young, early stage of development. And you can see there is the spinal column, and see there's a little tail. That little tail goes away mostly. Sometimes people keep their tails and they might be born with a short tail, but that's usually amputated if that's the case. And then you can see the pink parts, which is the nervous system starting. That dark mass is where the eye will eventually develop. This kind of fan of pink and orange and yellow up here at the top will eventually turn into a brain, but it's not a brain yet. This is a heart, and this is like the liver, kidney kind of thing happening, and the red is the intestines happening. You have just the very beginnings of systems and organs. You look like this. So the timeline of development, those first 2 weeks, you have the dividing zygote. And then you have the next 8 weeks, you start growing things. You go from that little bean with your tail and your eye spot, and you have your heart, and you start growing. These are limb buds. They start turning into your arms and legs. And then about 6 weeks, you start having an ear, and the teeth, they're not like teeth that are out yet, because babies don't have teeth when they're born, but they're formed inside your gums, your palate, which is the bottom of your mouth. And then you have your ear forming at 8 weeks, and your external genitalia. And this is the stage where they can figure out if you are male or female. They do the sonogram now, and they can say, oh, okay, we know what that baby is. And this is the stage where the brain starts. And your eyes start to be there. They don't really function yet. And then your central nervous system towards the end of the pregnancy, the last few months, that's totally developed. So psychological characteristics, and you might think this is strange that babies have a psychology when they're still inside their mother, but they do react emotionally. If the mother is stressed and has a high heartbeat, then the baby is stressed too. Because think about what happens to our bodies when we're stressed. Our heart rate goes up, our respiration changes, and we release different hormones into our system. When that happens over short times, like if you are startled by something, you're afraid, something exciting is happening, those are little short bits of accelerated heart rate. But when a mother is stressed constantly during a pregnancy, it really can have an effect on the baby and the baby's development. Babies inside react to sounds. Some people put headphones on and play the music. They show that the baby's heartbeat and brainwaves change with the music. They can react to taste and smells, and it's not like they're out tasting and smelling, But there are some things that we eat and drink that have really strong flavors, like mint and vanilla, that goes through and they are carried into the womb where the baby is, and the baby actually reacts to those and are exposed. Pressure, when you touch the stomach, a lot of times you'll see pregnant women holding their hands on their belly or rubbing their belly, and that is kind of a natural thing that is both soothing and stimulating to babies. If the dad's around, the baby can detect the dad's hand because the pressure and the warmth is different. And because it happens often, the baby learns what that is. They don't know, oh, this is dad's hand, but they learn that, oh, this is not mom. And then likewise, they can tell when somebody who is a stranger is touching. They can react to light. And the baby's brain development can be impacted by the mother's health and habits. That's why when somebody is pregnant, it's very important that they eat right, that they take the prenatal vitamins so they make sure they're getting all the nutrition and not missing things out, especially if they're sick during their pregnancy, have morning sickness, and try to avoid habits like drinking or smoking or using substances, and prescription medicines as well. Certain ones can cause bad effects on babies. That's why there's the warning labels that say do not use when you're pregnant. And there's a sonogram picture of a baby inside. See, the eyes aren't open, but you can see there's the little nose and lips and ears and little hand. Social characteristics during pregnancy. It's instinctive for other people to protect the mother. And mothers, when women are pregnant, they instinctively avoid physical risks. That means that while your brain can always override instinct, instinctively you do things carefuler, slower. You realize that your body is, your balance is a little bit different. You don't go out and go skydiving and things like that. And as you have like a natural elevated nervousness to it, before birth, during that last month, you start nesting. This is instinctive in all mammals do this. They prepare a place for the babies, an environment. You've seen this with, dogs and cats will get, like, if there's a cloth around or something, they'll dig it into a round place and keep messing with it. Or if it's another type of animal, they'll burrow into the ground to create a nest. With humans, this takes a lot of cleaning. You start literally wanting to both acquire things for the baby, fix up an area, a space for the baby, but there's also reported a very strong compulsion to clean things and organize things, and it's a way to reduce your anxiety and prepare, because if you do the work ahead of time, you aren't dealing with as much afterwards. Pregnancies are often celebrated with baby showers, gender reveals, other celebrations like that. And some cultures place extreme emphasis on the gender of the child. And that's where it starts tying into the origami things. So as we link to world population origami, which we're going to talk about tomorrow, the population of the world depends upon the rate of children being born. If you're in an area that's recovering from an event like war or famine or a natural disaster or disease, once that event is over, there tends to be a population boom. There's more babies being born. That's instinctive, because whenever a lot of people die, then you have a subsequent growth in population to kind of balance that out, to make sure that you still have enough people. Animals do this too. It's that natural way to restore numbers to ensure your species goes on. But when population numbers become too high, that creates a concern. In our modern society, population numbers can become high because we have modern medicine. So we treat disease and injury and all of that sooner and better, and there's a greater chance of overall lifetime survival. And babies have a much better chance of surviving than they used to. 100 years ago, 120 years ago, it was, you had, about a 1 1/3 chance of a baby dying. But now that's almost, that's reduced a lot. In Asia, because of population, that became an issue that led to a strong gender preference. And origami was one way that they hoped to control the gender of the baby. And we'll explain that. And over here on the right, you have the egg and rabbit thing, but that egg is filled with babies. Okay, your assignment is a time machine for today. So you need your Chromebook and traditional drawing materials. It's a choice of how you do this. You can write it, you can draw it, or if you're feeling extra, you can do a digital collage if you know how to do that. So your directions: from your birthday, you're going to count back to the approximate month that you were conceived. So take your birthday and go backwards 9 months. So my example, I was born at the end of December, the next to last day of December, and I went backwards 9 months, and that's April. So once you have that month, then I want you to find out 5 interesting things that were happening in the world during that month, and then show them to me. You can either just write about it like I did in the example, or you could draw it if you're feeling artistic, or you could do a digital collage if you want to do that, and you could do the pictures on a slide or however you choose. Okay? So the easiest way to do this is, after you figure out the month, just put in the month and the year and Google it, and there will be usually a Wikipedia article on things that happened during that month on that year. So 5 of the things that happened in April of 1963, I'm old. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote a letter from Birmingham jail, which was a very important part of civil rights. The caves at Lascaux were closed to the public. The caves at Lascaux are one of the best, most outstanding examples of prehistoric art. Towser the Mouser was born. This is a cat that was born in Scotland, and he held the world's record for catching the most mice. He caught over 28,000 mice. Wow. And the Boston Celtics won their 5th consecutive NBA championship. And Jet Li was born. Jet Li, you might know him. He is a martial artist and an actor as well. Okay? That's it. If you have questions, text me or email me.